All right, one of the things that is happening with Burst now, which is interesting, is that we have a major milestone that's coming up next year. So this is now late, end of October 2020. And I'll talk about in a different moment about the massive plans that are in stock for 2021. We're hoping to do a big crowdfund campaign for Burst in March of next year or April, we'll see, or sometime next year, right? Anyway, in order for that to happen, there needs to be a lot of work that has to be done in terms of like product design and generating the actual tangible things that we're going to try to present to the customer next year. Instead of waiting years and years and kind of going slowly like a snail, we're going to see if we could just take a leap of faith and just do a launch next year. And for that to happen, we have to have a lot of things ready. At the same time as that's happening, and that needs to start to build up, both of our designers that are working on this have become not unavailable, but basically one is completely unavailable, unreachable, like by phone or by email, and one is just very sick and sort of kind of half or even less than half available. And so now we're in October and the time clock is on to take the next few months to develop a whole bunch of books and hopefully make a lot of headway in developing an app as well by early next year. I have been looking at offshore designers. You know, globalization is a thing. It is a part of our reality, a part of our world today. So why couldn't there be somebody in the Ukraine or Moldova or Bangladesh or South Africa that would be talented and would be willing to help? And because of you know, the currency difference, sort of a smaller budget on our end would mean a very large income on their end, right? That's what globalization does, is when there's inequalities in values across the globe, you can do that. That's one of the ways that a small startup can really try to make it work in today's age, which wasn't even available 10, 20 years ago. For someone like me, for sure. Maybe for a big corporation, it was available. For a small company, it's not available, or it wasn't available. Now it's becoming available to do that because of how connected we are all becoming. I can contact somebody in Bangladesh and commission them on this work. So what I've done is I've been doing a lot of work with recruiting and trying to understand the marketplace of talent. How do you find talent? Where do you secure people? What are the ways that you can secure the property rights? Who gets to own the work that gets done? And if it's us, but they work on it, how do you like ensure and protect the ownership, right? For us, it shouldn't be a problem. Everybody understands if you're hired to do the work, you can't claim ownership to the work afterwards. But people have all kinds of misunderstandings or schemes. What if we build it now and then they don't claim anything, now everything's good, and then 10 years later, we're a big company, and then they come back and they say, I built this app 10 years ago, I deserve X because of that. So I've seen all kinds of shenanigans happen just in the current marketplace of startups that has prefigured that's already happened to other startups, where a misunderstanding or dishonesty, either on the founder parts or on the developer parts, has created a lot of friction and lawsuits and financial crises, etc. So legal protection is very important as well. But then how do you do that when you're international? There's no really international legal reach, as it were, so it's complicated. Long story short, we've already built an app right now. The first phase 0 -1 of the Burst app, it is built, has been built. And the way we did that was I used Code Mentor. It's a marketplace of programming teachers, programming instructors. And it turns out that they also would be willing to do projects as well, actual coding projects. And that's where I found a bunch of developers And that's how the first app was built. It was just, I just reached out to people. I was like, hey, instead of coaching me on programming, would you be willing to work on this project? And then, yeah, sure. But it was really it was a very raw version. A lot of issues happened in the middle of that process. It took 6 months to build instead of a month or two. It was a very simple project. It took 6 times longer than it should have really. People weren't on time, people were lazy, people were not motivated, people were distracted, they weren't producing high quality, things had to be redone, etc., etc. So it's done, it's finished, but I don't want to go through that process again. So I'm looking at the next level of upping up sort of the marketplace that I could tap into. And so yesterday I discovered a service called TopTal. They claim that top 3% of all developers and designers work with them or under them. I didn't know that name at all. It felt like a scam because I had never heard of them before. I've done a lot of digging over the last 12 hours, a lot of digging. And it turns out it's actually a big international company with hundreds of employees and unknown amounts of developers that work with them, under them, with clients like me. So, and it's like a worldwide operation, so people plug into it. And because of their pitch of having the 3% top talent in any country available for hire, that like hopefully is going to fix some of the issues that I had with the talent on the current Burst app. Plus, because of my designers also being unavailable, the book aspect of Burst is also stalling. We only have one book and it's not finished as far as like ready to go to market. On the book end, I'm cautiously optimistic that these designers coming in very expensive, but possibly worth it, can crank out 6 books in a month or 2 months at $3,000. But then the app, right? Got to revise the app, update, build it up, improve it. For phase 2, probably TopTal will be the place to go. That's another couple $1,000 just on the app alone because we have to redo the interface. The actual UI of it has never been done. I crafted it in a matter of hours, and I realized it's much better. It's not important for me to be too attached to my vanity metrics of I'm a designer, I can design this. It's not about me. It's more valuable financially for me to pay somebody thousands of dollars to design it for me than for me to spend 4 to 6 to 8+ weeks designing something that may not even be great, and in the meantime I can't do anything else. So it's a huge arbitrage of which option can yield less total overall cost with the most overall benefit. And I might have to go and sink even more money into the app just to save myself from the effort of designing it and designing the UI for it. As much as I like to think of myself as a designer, what I can do is I can provide a lot of guidance, a lot of inspiration, a lot of case studies, a lot of pointers that will make it come along my way, that will fit sort of my aesthetic. And that's, I think, going to be valuable, because if I didn't have any design experience, then I couldn't do that either. And that I would just be at the mercy of the designer. And they would just be like, hey, here it is. I'm like, okay, I guess. But this way I can be in part of that process, but I don't have to be the designer myself, because I'm not a UI designer and I will not do the best possible job. So it's better for somebody else to do a much better job, even though it might cost me thousands of dollars. But if we have the best, UI, and then that leads to a good next year, maybe it's worth it, right? It's a huge risk. All these are huge risks, but that's the name of the game with startups. It's a nail biter every single time.